Hi folks, I just wanted to come on and give you a quick update on the whole mega group Epstein connection that I've been looking into. I wanted to wait until I saw the BBC Panorama special, the Virginia Giuffre interview. Unfortunately, and kind of like I expected, but a little bit more than I expected, the Panorama special was sort of more high on spin and light on interview. I think they probably got a lot more of Virginia Giuffre's words they didn't include in that interview. But there's some interesting stuff that we can learn from that interview, and I'm not going to break down the BBC Panorama show. I don't need to. A lot of other people have done that already. If you haven't seen it, you'll find a link below. You'll find a link to the interview, and you can go and watch it for yourself. Something that we did learn was that as I mentioned last week, or on the last report that I did on this, I said to you, I suggested that Ghislaine Maxwell was very likely the brains behind the whole operation. And there was actually a woman on the interview called Sarah Ransom, who was another victim of Epstein's, who was trapped on the island, I think, for 6 months. And she confirmed that Ghislaine Maxwell was the nuts and bolts of the operation. She said she used to run the girls, and they used to bring in a lot of Eastern Bloc girls from probably Ukraine, Russia, places like that. This very likely was done through Jean-Luc Brunel, I would say, through the modelling agencies that he has in France, the connection to Eastern Europe through there. A lot of girls get trafficked out of Ukraine and places like this. A lot of them, get jobs. They believe they're going as nannies and all sorts of stuff. They end up getting stuck into these situations. Sex slavery, pornography, all sorts of stuff. A lot of it comes out of Eastern Europe. And most of the girls that you see, if you watch that sort of stuff, if you're someone out there that consumes that type of material, I would suggest that most of the girls that you're looking at are actually trafficked from Eastern Europe. And this is not the sort of material you should be consuming, because by consuming it, you're supporting this. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But, looking at the interview, like I said, there was a lot of spin. Even they showed pictures of Prince Andrew at Ascot with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein there with him. They're really, like I said, they're making the focus all about Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that he deceived so many people. Nobody knew. We just never expected. There was an interview with Dershowitz, and he said, we never expected. He threw his hands up. We never expected that he had a secret life where he was involved with children. And this is really incomprehensible, folks, that people would be saying this, because all you've got to really do is look at the life of Jeffrey Epstein and his rise to prominence, his rise to fortune. Nobody really knows how he got that fortune, and the story that they give you really doesn't stack up at all. And when you look at it, there's an article that came out, I think, in July by Bloomberg. I'll put a link below. I'll find the article. I'll put a link for you below. And it sort of told you about how he came to his fortune. This came out when he first got arrested back in July. And it speaks about his life and how he came to be this incredible, influence that he was. And it mentions that when he was in school, he was teaching school back in, I think, the 60s to the mid-70s, and he was paying a lot of undue attention to high school girls while he was at school, while he was there as a teacher. I think he was doing maths and calculus. And bear in mind that he'd never completed college. He dropped out of college, and here he is teaching math and calculus at a high school, paying special attention to the girls in the corridor. So it was noticed then. And then he goes on from there and he starts working for Adam Greenberg. And how he met Adam Greenberg was because he used to go to the high school parties. I mean, this is the sort of guy he was. He used to like hanging around the girls so much that he started going to the students' parties and hanging out with them there. And one of the people, he was quite lucky, one of the people that he met at one of the parties happened to be Greenberg's son. And so Greenberg took him on board to work for his company. Why would Greenberg take this guy on board? He'd been paying undue attention to the young girls at school. He'd never completed college, and now he brings him into his firm, which was Bear Stearns. I mean, this is a very, very reputable firm. And then within 4 years, he has made partner in Bear Stearns and strikes out on his own company. He goes from there to Victoria's Secret, working for Les Wexner. And this is like a meteoric rise to, billionaireship. It's ridiculous how quick he went. And then suddenly we see people talking about how he must have deceived Les Wexner and maybe had something over him and suddenly got power of attorney of all of his staff and was just doing all these mega financial deals. And Les Wexner ends up giving him this house in New York City, which is virtually, the biggest house in Manhattan, if not the biggest house in Manhattan. Very, very huge house. And you look at all this, what's it all about? Here's this guy who's obviously attracted to young girls. And while he's working for Bear Stearns, he's getting reports of molesting girls on the estate there. And some of the girls are reporting it. And they're being told, no, don't report this. And if you're going to go to suggest you're going to go to the police, I would say that you won't make it off the property alive. There's all sorts of stuff if you look into this. So they knew what was going on. They knew what he was doing. So if you look at it, they've kind of found this guy who suits their needs, and they're grooming him for this position that they want to give him. And, and you look about it, how would you get all this money? And people have said, well, he's a billionaire, of course he's got all this money and he's not going to be dead. They wouldn't have let him die. He would be able to buy his way out. But if you look at his meteoric rise to fame, there's no way he earned this money, folks. There's no way he was doing all these financial deals. There's no record of any financial deals he ever did. The only record of any deal he did was with Victoria's Secret. And that seems to be his only client that he ever had. And this all seems to have just been put there on paper. And like I said, how do you get $1 billion? How do you give someone like Jeffrey Epstein, have him have $1 billion and be a billionaire? We can't just give it to him. You've got to create a backstory, a cover story to show this guy's meteoric rise to fortune the way he did. And this guy started off as, like pushing papers around. He started off as a floor person, like lowly level grunt in his first job. How did he get to be where he was? Like when he started in Bear Stearns, it was a low level grunt, and he made partner in 4 years. How did that happen? If there weren't inner workings going on. And when you look at his connection, think about it. Like I said, this guy got the job because he met Greenberg's son at a party, and he'd gone to the party basically to chat up the school chicks, and this is one of the teachers, this is sort of pretty sus stuff. So they see what this guy's on about straight away. Now, if you look at this, it goes far, far deeper than what people are saying and what they're looking at. So this backstory has just been created. And how, like I said, how do you give a guy like this millions of dollars? All you got to do is know the right people, because to give Jeffrey Epstein $1 billion, all you have to do is know guys in the Federal Reserve, and they're just going to go click, click, click on the computer. And suddenly there's all the money. They can create whatever paperwork they want to show that it happened because they run the system. Easy to do, So you can't think that because he's got all these billions of dollars, he's going to hang himself, because he got given all the money, And I don't think he hung himself either. I think they killed him. It makes perfect sense for them to have killed him. It doesn't make any sense for them to have kept him alive, not with what he knows, because they have to set him up as the fall guy. They have to set him up as this guy who is running this international pedophile network to blackmail politicians and blackmail famous people. But it goes far deeper than that. And like I said last week, or on the last report, you look at Ghislaine Maxwell. She has heavy connections to Mossad through her father, Robert Maxwell, who was definitely a Mossad spy, Mossad agent. Jeffrey Epstein has most likely got connections to Mossad. I would say Mossad is who's been running this whole show right from the beginning. And the whole concept that he had something over Leslie Wexner, which is why he gave him this house. You've got to look at this house. As I said last week, it was like a bordello. And I said Bordeaux last week. Someone pointed that out. No, Max, it's not a Bordeaux, it's a bordello. And they said a Bordeaux's a wine. I got quite a chuckle out of that. I don't drink wine, so I have no idea what wines are called. And it's a similar word, so that was a bit of a a bit of a slip. But it was like a bordello. This house of Jeffrey Epstein's. It was a huge house. When they describe it, they say it had an incalculable amount of bedrooms. Some people have reported 41 bedrooms in this house. Now, what are you doing with a house with 41 bedrooms? It doesn't make a lot of sense. This was a bordello, and you got to understand as well, the girls that we're hearing from, not all the girls are going to come forward, because there would have been all sorts of stuff going on in this house. There would have been drug deals going on. The girls would have been running their private scams with each other. A lot of them would have actually been into it. So you've got to look at this story and how it was being put together. And you can look from the story of the girls who have come forward and spoken about being raped. What they've said is they went in to see Jeffrey Epstein, they give him a massage, and then he rolls over and he gets them to do other things. If they're into that, then he says, well, that was great. If you bring more girls, I'll give you more money. If they're one of these girls that's into that type of thing, they might think, well, hey, I'm on a good wicket here. I've got a good place to stay. I can bring a few friends in. We can make good income, or we can hang around with billionaires and royalty. All we've got to do is provide favours for them, which we're going to be doing anyway. So a lot of girls would have been into it. The ones that you're going to be hearing from are the ones that weren't into it and the ones that were held captive. Like when you look at the story of Sarah Ransom, she talks about being taken to Epstein's island and she couldn't get off the island for 6 months. A lot of the girls that go there or brought there from Eastern Europe and stuff, they would have been able to get off the island. That's it. Once you're on the island, you're there and you've got to do what you're told to do. Or bad things will happen, I imagine. So look at that. And then you've got people like Virginia Roberts, who was kind of brought into the fold. And when you look at her story, she was a very vulnerable girl and she was perfect for the role, to be able to mold into that. And people who are saying, oh, these are just whores and they were rah, 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 look, you've got to look at young girls, young 15, 16-year-old girls. They're in that stage of life and it's very easy to entice them into doing stupid things if you've got a lot of money, especially if they come from a society that's very downtrodden and they don't have a lot of money. One of the girls was commenting, it was a bad thing to do, but $300 is a lot of money for a girl who makes $6 an hour. $300 for 40 minutes is good for a girl who makes $6 an hour. So you've got to understand the mentality of these things. And once they get, into that circle and they get in the orbit of Jeffrey Epstein, it just goes the way it goes. And once you get caught into that, when there's drugs involved and there's movies and video involved, well, it goes the way it goes. And again, think if you're a young girl that did get enticed into this and you did want to leave the house and go and do other things, well, the video footage isn't just of the famous people, it's of you too. So they can use that over the girls as well to keep them there. I mean, it's a very, very sordid detail. Oh, very, very sordid deal, sorry. But you look at how it went down. All the girls who have come forward talk about how Epstein raped them, how he took them up to the room, he got them to massage him, rolled over, did other things, and if they weren't into it, then he would rape them and send them on their way. He'd do it in the room with all these famous pictures of all these people, all these powerful people that I know. So what, you really think you're going to go and tell anybody? Look, there's the police chief, there's the head of this, there's presidents, there's this, there's that, there's bankers, there's all these people. These are the people you're going to go and tell that I just did this. They're all friends of mine and they all come here too. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to tell? That would be the situation that the girls are in, so... But if they did go along with it, well, okay, come and work for me, and then you're living in this house, 41 bedrooms, and you can't tell me that people that were going in there didn't know what was going on. So this has all been set up for Jeffrey Epstein to take the fall. It has. I mean, just look at the way it's done. Why would Les Wexner give him this house? And then, 41 bedroom house. What's he going to do with a 41 bedroom house? Why is there even a 41 bedroom house there in the middle of Manhattan? What's it for? It's a bordello for the elite, for the rich and famous to be able to come there and do whatever they want with young women. And once they're in there, then you've got them. And that's the way it goes. And as I said with Prince Andrew, the princess programming, hey, come and meet a prince and all of this sort of stuff, you can see how the whole scam's run. And this is a brownstone operation. And people who are saying that perhaps the prince's speech was planned and all this sort of stuff, his interview was planned to throw us a red herring and, they want us to know. No, look, Prince Andrew's interview was completely unscripted. It was not in the script at all. He broke protocol with that interview. And you can tell by Fergie said that the reason Prince Andrew had gone to New York was to settle the $15,000 debt that Epstein had with Sarah Ferguson. And that could have actually worked. The people may just have bought that, but then Andrew goes and sticks his foot in his mouth and says, no, No, I had to go and see him. I had to go and see him. Because as you do, you have to go and see this convicted pedophile that wasn't a very good friend of yours, that you haven't seen for 4 years, just in order to tell him that you can't see him anymore because you have a tendency to be too honourable. That whole scenario just blew the whole game. I mean, that is the most preposterous excuse I've ever heard for anybody to do anything what Andrew did. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, he could have got away with it by saying, look, I had to go there and settle this $15,000 bill because I don't want to have any ties to this disgusting individual. It would have been as simple as that. He could have changed the direction of the entire interview. But he didn't have the brains to say that. He really thought he could be this pompous thing and just say, look, this is how good I am, that even a lowlife like that, I'm such an honourable man that I have to go there to personally break ties. I mean, it was preposterous. So you can see why that was such a mistake and what they're trying to do to cover it up. They're really attempting to anyway. And that's what Trump is doing, of course, while he's gone to see the Queen. It's damage control. They're trying to figure out how to put a lid on this because this goes very deep. When you start looking into the mega group, and again, I'll put a link below to the article by Whitney, which is a fantastic article on the mega group. When you look at the ties this group has, it becomes very, very apparent that this was a brownstone operation. And for people who don't understand what a brownstone operation is, it's exactly this. It's catching famous people or powerful people in compromising positions with underage children or with girls or, little boys, little girls, whatever. Just catch them in a compromising position, having sex with a minor or even better, a child, and you've got these people for life. They will never, ever squeal on you, and they'll do anything you want them to do from that point. And once you can get enough powerful people in there, heads of banking, heads of industry, heads of the legal system, judges, lawyers, all sorts of people, then you've got the whole world in your pocket. And that's what this is about. It isn't just about Epstein blackmailing people. It's about the mega group setting up this situation and using Epstein as the fall guy. Who's going to give him a house, this mega house in New York, worth $77 million? There's talk that he bought it for $1. There's talk that he paid $20 million for it. It doesn't matter because the money was just given to him anyway. He didn't have an income. The income was just there on paper. I mean, find me an income. If you're saying he had an income, find me an income that Jeffrey Epstein had, because none of what they're given us stacks up. You don't become a partner of Bear Stearns in 4 years after starting as a grommet on the floor. It doesn't work that way. Not unless you have very high-level connections and some very secret dealings going on in the background. And the best secret dealings to have are these dealings, these secret sexual dealings with underage people. That's how everyone manipulates everyone through the system. That's how it works, folks. It's pretty uncomfortable to look at, but that's how it works. But they had to create the paper trail. They had to create the whole concept that this guy was a billionaire, and they had to put everything in his name. The fact that his face is out there and all of this stuff is in his name. The island is in his name. The New York mansion is in his name. This is why they had to get him to buy it. This is why, and I think it was like 2011, they had to get him to buy it because he'd already been busted, and they planned to hang him out as a fall guy to put a lid on this whole thing because things are getting ugly, because there are still good cops in there. Just look at the guy who's hiding out in Russia at the moment, who's got apparently 700 of the sex tapes that were collected from Epstein's house in Florida. He's sort of holding on to them and he's not going to release them. That's just the way it is. I wish he would, but he's using them as life insurance. But you look at how deep this goes, folks. It's a huge tangled web, and it's a brownstone operation being run by very, very powerful people. We've got to look at the mega group, and we've got to look at how this world is run, and we can't let the focus just remain on Prince Andrew and the concept that Epstein is just this pervert. He's the fall guy. That's why they put everything in his name, because it had to be in his name. And I said that they would have been planning this to hang him out. That's why they got him to actually buy the place on paper. Even he mightn't have even done it. I mean, they just could have done it themselves and created the paper trail. Oh, look, here it is. Here's the transaction. 20 million sounds reasonable. 20 million, that's a lot of money to pay for a house. Other reports I'm seeing of $13.5 million that he paid for the house. Whatever, it's a $77 million house. It's worth a lot more than what Epstein paid for it. But I don't think he paid for it at all. I don't think he paid for the island at all. I don't think he paid for any of his properties. I think it's just all there on paper to put his name to it. Because if this whole operation was to ever come undone, they need someone like Epstein to take the fall. And Epstein has exactly the right history that you need someone to have. A history of being attracted to young girls right since high school. And he just managed to sneak through and no one ever knew that he had this secret life. Come on, give me a break, folks. He was groomed for this as much as anybody else. As bad a person as he is, and terrible guy, did terrible things. Social misfit. Even again, Virginia Giuffre said in the interview when she was with Prince Andrew and they were going back to Ghislaine Maxwell's house, that everyone was talking and laughing, except Jeffery. He was just sitting in the background because he's socially awkward, she said. So again, we hear these reports. This guy was a socially awkward guy. A couple of minutes of conversation and it's all over. He's just got nothing to say. All he's interested in is tits and bums. So that's what we've got to look at, folks. It's the mega group and who runs the mega group. And this is only one part of the octopus as well. This is just the operation that was running the brownstone operations in order to get dirt on everybody and to get everybody into the fold. Now, when you look at where this is going, I mean, there'll be drug trafficking, there'll be arms trafficking, how all of this is done, how all the rat lines run. These are the people who are running all the rat lines, and this is why they're running the rat lines, because they've got all of this dirt on them, which is what this house was set up to be. You don't have a 41-bedroom house, a 7-story mansion with 41 bedrooms in the middle of Manhattan, visited by the who's who of American eminence, when it's just a meeting place for business meetings and conferences like people like Alan Dershowitz are saying. No, folks, this was a bordello, and it was a bordello with massive surveillance in it that was used to set people up. And you could just bring anybody in there, because once they've got you set up, and I've got you on film with this underage girl, you're going to do something for me. And you're going to go and get this guy, and you're going to wine and dine him, and you're going to bring him back here for a meeting. And then we'll just bring in a couple of girls, and he will have no idea that they're underage. That's the way it goes, folks. So I might bring out some more reports on this as the findings keep coming along. But that's kind of where I'm at the moment when I'm looking at this. And excuse the presentation for all this, folks. I don't normally do these videos, as I said the other day. But actually, I might start doing a few more. I'm actually thinking of even stopping the radio show for maybe a year, taking a year off the radio show, or perhaps just doing the shows once a month so I can concentrate on making the films that I've been trying to get made for so long, because I have to start again because I got hacked last year. But even if I do that, I would be putting out reports like this, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, however many times a week, maybe just short reports to tell you what I'm thinking about, and maybe I'll just continue on that way for a year if you would be happy with something like that. And I'll bring you more on this mega group information as more information comes to hand. But look into it yourself, and if you find stuff out, please do email me with the information that you find out. And I think it's all related, folks. Like I said, all the Eastern Bloc porn that you see, I would suggest that even Jeffrey Epstein and the mega group is connected to all of this stuff. Drug running, arms running, all sorts of stuff. This is far, far more than just Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew being naughty boys and blackmailing people. It's far, far more than that. And Ghislaine Maxwell is key in this whole investigation. And I would say what Trump's doing there with Ghislaine Maxwell, or with the Queen at the moment, is trying to work out how the hell are we going to put the lid back on this box, and convincing the Queen that they're going to have to hang Prince Andrew out to dry. They're going to have to throw him to the wolves, because otherwise the whole system is going to come undone. And I believe Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel are hiding out in Brazil at the moment, so I've heard through various people. So that would be interesting to see what happens when they come out, but I don't even know if they will. If their lawyers are doing all of the work for them, and they are, there is legal lawsuits happening that involve Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel, and these are being dealt with by their lawyers, so obviously they're still in the picture. But the thing is, if they lose these lawsuits and arrest warrants get put out for them, will they surface and ever be arrested? That's the question. And I wonder if that'll ever happen. I wonder if we will ever see Ghislaine Maxwell again. I really do. Apparently, Prince Andrew has been in contact with her every day. This, of course, is leaked out as well. Again, they need to put the focus on Prince Andrew, make it all about Prince Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell running this whole thing. Oh, yep, Jean-Luc Brunel, and it's all Jeffrey Epstein as the ringleader. Because he's the one who's the billionaire and he used all his money to run these blackmail operations so he could get dirt on everybody. And that's how he was making his money, by continually blackmailing these people. I've even seen people asking questions, well, why do they keep paying him the blackmail money? I mean, after you'd blackmailed me once, wouldn't you have him killed or something? That's the thing. He wasn't blackmailing them for money. He was given an unlimited supply of money by Les Wexner's connections, by the mega group. And like I said, it's as simple as typing a few numbers into the screen. Oh, no worries. I'll just go and talk to my friends in the Federal Reserve. We'll sort all this out. We'll get you to come work for the company for 4 years. You'll have a meteoric rise to fame. All the girls you want. All you got to do is run this operation for us. Yeah. It's something to think about, folks. So look into that, and I'll talk to you soon. And for those people who are nearby in Brisbane, Queensland, or the Gold Coast, don't forget that I'm speaking in Varsity Lakes on the 14th of December. There is still a few tickets for that, so if you get in now, you'll get yourself a ticket, and I hope to see you there, and I'll bring out another report on this when I get some more information. And tell me what you think about perhaps doing a few short clips like this during the week and leaving the radio shows alone for a little while, just so I can get on to other things. That would be good. If I could do that, see how I go. Take care. Or should I say, in Lakesh? See, I'm not used to being on camera, folks. That's the thing. It actually takes me a little while to sort of hype up to sit here and do your presentation like this, because I just don't like cameras. I just don't like them. I feel like they take something from you. I don't know. Maybe it's that, the natives, the way they think about cameras. I don't know. They make me feel uncomfortable. But anyway, I'm babbling. Have a great day.